Sign the rental over to me, Mom. It will simplify your taxes. I will handle everything from here. My daughter-in-law Claire slid a quitclaim deed across the Sunday dinner table. Already printed. Already dated. Already notarized, waiting for one signature that would transfer 18 years of ownership in 10 seconds. She had been managing the books on that house for 18 months. She had stopped paying the property taxes 14 months ago. And she had never told me. The house was worth $265,000. The tax lien she had let accumulate was $38,412.07. So I signed it. But before I did, I printed a certified copy of the lien from the county website and placed it in a folder she would never see. If you have ever let a family member handle your paperwork because you were tired and you trusted them, this story will show you exactly how far someone can go before you notice. My name is Evelyn. I was a bookkeeper for 32 years. And this is the story of how I let my daughter-in-law take a house I knew was carrying a debt she created. Has someone in your family ever offered to help with something you had under control, and you let them because it felt unkind to say no? Drop it in the comments. I want to know if you caught the warning signs before I did. The rental house on Walnut Street was never supposed to be a problem. I bought it in the spring of 2006 with money from my late husband's life insurance. $2,000 from his policy went to the closing costs. The rest, $16,000, went to the down payment on a 2-bedroom bungalow with a detached garage and a fenced backyard. The house cost $112,000 at the time. I paid off the mortgage in 2016. 10 years ahead of schedule. I rented it to a retired postal worker named Harold McNally. Harold was 63 when he moved in. He was quiet, kept to himself, paid $1,350 on the first of every month like clockwork. He had been living there for 11 years by the time Claire entered the picture. He called me when the water heater needed replacing and when the garage door spring broke. I handled the rest. The taxes, the insurance, the occasional repair. I managed that house the same way I managed books for 3 decades. I started my career at a hardware distribution company in 1984. For the first 6 years, I maintained the general ledger by hand, entries in black ink, corrections in red, every column balanced to the penny at the end of each month. I worked there for 22 years. After the company closed, I did freelance bookkeeping for small businesses. A plumbing contractor with 17 employees. A florist who could never figure out why her margins were thin. I found her supplier had been overcharging her by $400 a month for 3 years. A family dental practice where the office manager had been skimming from the petty cash. A real estate agent who needed help tracking commissions across 4 different brokerages. In 32 years, I learned one thing above everything else: people make mistakes with money, but patterns are never accidents. A one-time error means someone forgot. A recurring error that benefits the same person every time is not an error. When someone consistently benefits from a financial irregularity, the irregularity is a choice. I did not need help tracking a single rental property. But Claire offered it anyway. Claire was married to my son Michael. They had been together for 6 years by then. She worked part-time at a dental office handling insurance billing. She was organized and efficient, and she noticed that I was getting older. "You have been doing this alone for too long, Mom," she said one evening at dinner. "Let me handle the bookkeeping on the rental. Taxes, insurance, tenant correspondence. It is the least I can do." I hesitated. She saw it. "Just the paperwork," she said. "You still make the decisions." "I just do the filing." That is what convinced me. Not the offer itself, the assurance that I would still be in control. That I would still know what was happening with my own property. I said yes. I gave her access to the property tax account. I showed her where I kept the insurance documents. I told her Harold paid on the 1st and to let me know if anything changed. She smiled and said, "I will take care of everything. If you are subscribed to this channel, you already know where this is going. Subscribe if you have not." I share these stories because the only way to protect yourself from a betrayal you do not see coming is to know what it looks like when it happens to someone else. The first year was fine. The insurance renewed on schedule. Harold paid rent on time. When the furnace needed a repair in November, Claire coordinated the service appointment and sent me the receipt. She handled everything she said she would handle. I stopped thinking about the rental altogether. But there was one thing I did not notice during that year. The property tax statements stopped arriving at my house. I had always received them in the mail every October, a single page from the county showing the assessed value and the amount due. In the first year of Claire's management, the statement did not come. I remember noticing its absence around Thanksgiving and telling myself the county must have switched to digital delivery. I was wrong. Claire had redirected the tax mail to her own address. She did that in the first month of managing the account. What I did notice were the smaller changes. Claire started calling me more often, not about the rental, but about other things. She asked if I had taken my blood pressure medication. She offered to drive me to my doctor's appointments. She suggested I let her review my mail before I threw anything away. Each of these offers seemed reasonable on its own. But together, they formed a pattern of access. I did not recognize it until later. About a month before the Sunday dinner, Harold called me. This was unusual. Harold only called when something broke. But this time he called to tell me that Claire had come by the rental property without notice. She had let herself in with a key I did not know she had, walked through the house, and told Harold she was assessing the property for insurance purposes. Harold said she spent 20 minutes in the backyard taking photos on her phone. I did not think much of it at the time. Harold seemed uneasy, but I told him it was fine, that Claire was helping me with the property. I assumed Claire was being thorough. In hindsight, she was measuring what she was about to acquire. The Sunday dinner happened in late February. Michael and Claire came over with their daughter Sophie, a quiet 6-year-old who sat at the kitchen table coloring while the adults talked. I made pot roast with carrots and potatoes, the same dinner I had made every Sunday for 40 years. Claire brought a bottle of red wine. The conversation was ordinary. Work. School. A trip they were planning to the Grand Canyon that summer. Then Claire said, "I have been doing some research on the rental, Mom. Did you know you could save quite a bit on your taxes by transferring it to a lower-income household?" I set down my fork. "What do you mean?" She reached into her tote bag and pulled out a manila folder. Inside was a quitclaim deed, already filled out, transferring ownership of the Walnut Street property from Evelyn Mary Bowman to Claire Marie Morrison. The document had been prepared by a title company called Pacific Coast Title. The notary line was blank, waiting for ink. "I can handle everything from here," she said. "The taxes, the maintenance, the tenant. You will not have to worry about it anymore. And you will not have to report the rental income on your return. The county will not even know it is yours. It will simplify everything." She said the word simplify the same way 3 times in that conversation. I noticed it later, when I replayed the conversation in my head. She slid the deed across the table. A pen sat on top of it. Michael was eating his pot roast. Sophie was coloring a cat. Claire was smiling at me with a smile that had been practiced. I looked at the deed. I looked at Claire. I looked at Michael, who did not look up from his plate. "I need to review it," I said. "I will look it over this week." Claire's smile flickered. "It is a standard form, Mom. I had the title company prepare it." They said everything is in order. I am sure it is. I just want to read it. It is really straightforward, Mom. You do not need to worry. I am not worried, I said. I want to read it. I folded the deed and put it in my purse. We finished dinner. Michael helped clear the plates. Sophie showed me her drawing, a purple cat with green whiskers. I told her it was beautiful. They left at 8:30. I sat at my kitchen table until 11 o'clock that night with the deed in front of me. A quitclaim deed transfers whatever interest the grantor has in a property. That was the sentence I kept reading. Whatever interest the grantor has. Not a clean title. Not a guarantee of value. Whatever interest exists at the time of signing. If the property had a lien, even a lien the grantor did not know about, that lien transferred with the deed. Claire had not mentioned any liens. She had not mentioned any debts. She had presented the transaction as a simple tax strategy. I had been a bookkeeper for 32 years. I knew that property records were public information. I had used the county database during my freelance years to verify tax status for clients before they purchased properties. The process was simple: enter the parcel number, review the tax history, check for outstanding filings. I opened my laptop at 11:15. The county tax assessor website had a public search portal. I entered the parcel number for 211 Walnut Street. The page loaded in 3 seconds. A notice of state tax lien. Filing date, 14 months earlier. Total amount due, $38,412.07, including penalties and interest. I wrote the number down on a piece of scratch paper. I checked the date again. 14 months earlier meant the lien had been filed 4 months after Claire took over the bookkeeping. She had paid exactly 1/4 of property taxes. Then she stopped. I opened a second browser tab and logged into the bank account I used for rental income. Claire had view-only access. I scrolled through the transaction history. Harold's rent payments were being deposited, $1,350 on the 1st of every month, without interruption. 32 payments in total since Claire took over. That was $43,200 in rent collected. None of it had gone to property taxes. Instead, the money had been transferred out to Claire's personal checking account. $800 here. $1,000 there. Small enough to escape notice if you were not paying attention. Frequent enough to drain the account systematically. I printed the lien notice. I printed the payment history showing the gap. I printed the bank statements showing the transfers. I printed the county's ownership record confirming the property was still in my name. Then I sat back and thought about what I was going to do. Pay attention here. Because this is where most people would make the wrong choice. I could have called Claire that night. I could have driven to her house and put the lien notice on her kitchen table. I could have called Michael, called a lawyer, called the county and reported the attempted fraud. Every instinct told me to confront her. I did not do any of those things. A confrontation would not undo the lien. It would not recover the rent money. It would not make Michael see his wife clearly. It would start a fight that I would win legally but lose emotionally. And at the end of that fight, I would still own a property with a $38,000 tax debt attached to it. But there was another option. A quitclaim deed transfers whatever interest the grantor has, including the debts attached to the property. If I signed the deed, the house would belong to Claire. The lien would belong to Claire. The tax notices would go to Claire's address. She would become legally responsible for the debt she had created. She thought she was taking a house worth $265,000 with no strings attached and no questions asked. She would actually be taking a house burdened with a $38,000 lien she had manufactured herself. I decided to let her take it. Claire called me 4 days after the Sunday dinner. Have you had a chance to look at the deed, Mom? I am reviewing it, I said. I will let you know. She called again a week later. This time her voice was different, not quite impatient, but close. I can have the notary come by any time this week. Just let me know when you are ready. I will call you, I said. Here is what I did during those 2 weeks, and it is the part of the story that mattered most. I was not stalling. I was preparing. During those 2 weeks, I drove to the county records office. I waited in line at the gray concrete building on 4th Street, the same building where I had recorded the deed when I bought the house in 2006. I requested certified copies of the tax lien filing, the property tax payment history for the previous 5 years, and the current ownership record. The clerk wore reading glasses on a chain. She processed my request without asking questions. Certified copies cost $2 per page. I paid $22 for 11 pages. She stamped each one with the county seal and handed me a manila folder. I drove home. I placed the folder in my filing cabinet, in the drawer labeled Walnut Street, Tax Records. Right where it would look like normal paperwork. Then I called Claire. I looked over the deed, I said. It looks fine. When can we sign it? She came over that same evening. Claire arrived at 7 o'clock with a notary, a woman named Denise from the dental office. Claire had arranged everything. The deed was in a fresh folder. Denise had her stamp and her logbook. Claire wanted the transaction complete before I could reconsider. We sat at my kitchen table. Denise checked my driver's license and wrote my name in her notary log. I read each page of the deed slowly. The property description. The names of the parties. The signature block. I took my time. Claire sat across the table with her hands folded, her purse on her lap. She watched me read. She did not rush me. She did not seem nervous. She thought I was just being thorough. I signed my name on the last page. The pen scratched against the paper. Denise stamped it. She dated it. She wrote her commission expiration date in the notary block. She initialed the margin. Denise left first. Claire stayed for a moment. She put the deed in her bag and touched my arm. Thank you, Mom. I will take good care of it. You will not have to worry about the rental anymore. Good, I said. She left. The door closed. The house was quiet. I went to the kitchen and made a cup of tea. Then I walked to my filing cabinet and pulled out the folder with the certified copies. I placed it in the drawer. And I waited. 2 months passed. During those 2 months, I did not sleep well. Not because I was guilty, I was not. I lay awake some nights wondering if I had done the right thing. Wondering if I should have confronted Claire directly instead of letting the trap close slowly. But every time I thought about calling her, I remembered the deed on the dinner table. The pre-printed document. The pre-arranged notary. The redirected mail. The diverted rent payments. None of it was accidental. I checked the county website more often than I needed to. I told myself it was diligence. But really, I was waiting for confirmation that my plan had worked, and dreading what it would mean when it did. I checked the county website every Thursday morning. The deed was recorded on March 3rd. The property was now listed under Claire's name. The lien was still active, $38,412, plus additional penalties accruing at roughly $150 per month. I did not hear from Claire about the property during those 2 months. She called a few times about other things, Sophie's school play, a barbecue they were planning for Easter, but she did not mention Walnut Street. She did not mention taxes. She did not mention the lien. She also came by the house once in April. She brought a casserole and sat at my kitchen table for an hour talking about Sophie's reading test. I made coffee. We talked about the weather. She did not mention the rental, and neither did I. I watched her sit in the same chair where she had watched me sign the deed, and I wondered if she thought about it as much as I did. The county sends tax delinquency notices to the owner of record. Once the deed was recorded, those notices would go to Claire's address. Not mine. I continued my life. I went to the grocery store. I visited my sister in Portland for a weekend. I weeded the garden. I did not tell anyone what I had done. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon in early May. I was standing in the kitchen making tea when my phone rang. Claire's name appeared on the screen. I answered. Mom, did you know there was a tax issue on the Walnut Street house? Her voice was different. Tighter. The practiced warmth was gone. What kind of issue? I received a notice from the county. It says there is an unpaid balance from last year. Almost $40,000. Did you know about this? I have not received tax statements since you took over the bookkeeping, I said. You redirected the mail to your address. Remember? Silence. I paid the taxes when I was managing it, she said. Did you miss a payment before I took over? No, I said. I paid every year on time for 18 years. I have the receipts. The lien was filed 4 months after you started managing the account. The same month you stopped paying. You know exactly when it started. I did not know, she said. You redirected the mail, I said. You knew. The silence lasted longer this time. I could hear her breathing. The house is in your name now, I said. You handle the taxes from here. But the cost had not fully arrived yet. Not until my son called. Michael called me a week later. Mom, Claire is really stressed about this tax thing on the rental. She has been crying all week. Did you know there was a problem before you signed it over? She was managing the books for 18 months, Michael. I signed the deed 2 months ago. The lien was filed 14 months ago. Do the math. He was quiet for a long time. She was just trying to help, he said. She stopped paying the property taxes and transferred the rent money to her personal account, I said. Do you want to see the bank records? I do not want to see bank records. I want you two to work this out. There is nothing to work out. The house is hers now. The debt is hers now. I am done. He did not answer. I heard him exhale. You should have told me, he said. You would not have believed me, I said. And I did not want to spend the next year fighting both of you over a house I was going to lose either way. This way, I chose how it ended. That does not make sense. It does not have to make sense to you. It was my house. I hung up and sat in the kitchen for a long time. The tea I had made went cold. I looked at the phone in my hand and realized he was not going to call back. That was when I understood the full cost of what I had done, not the house, but the space between us that would not close again. A quitclaim deed transfers whatever ownership interest you have in a property, no more, no less. If your property has a clean title, the new owner gets a clean title. If your property has a lien, the new owner inherits the lien. Claire thought she was taking a house worth $265,000. Instead, she took a house burdened with a $38,000 debt that she had created herself. She did not try to undo the transfer. She could not. A recorded quitclaim deed requires the new owner's consent to reverse. Harold moved out 6 months after the transfer. Claire raised the rent to $1,800 and he could not afford it. A new family lives there now. I do not know if Claire has paid off the lien. But I know this: the only reason Claire's plan did not work on me is that I checked the records before I signed. I did not trust the document at face value. I verified what it really transferred. Michael used to call me every Sunday evening. We would talk about his week, Sophie's school, the garden I was planting. After the transfer, the calls became less frequent. Every other Sunday. Then once a month. I do not blame him entirely. I made a choice that put him in the middle of something he did not ask for. But I also know that he never asked me what I wanted. He never asked if I wanted to keep my house. He assumed I would be relieved to have someone else handle it. That assumption was the beginning of everything. I keep the certified copies in my filing cabinet. 11 pages. $22. The county seal. The stamped dates. The line that says, Notice of State Tax Lien. Every time I open that drawer, I remember what it cost me: a house I owned for 18 years, a son who does not call as often, and a daughter-in-law who cannot look me in the eye. If you have someone in your life who manages any part of your finances, a joint account, a bill payment, a property you own, go check the public records this week. Not next week. This week. County tax websites are free. The information is public. And the 30 minutes it takes to search could save you everything you own. Have you ever signed a document and later realized you should have read it more carefully? Or have you ever caught someone managing your money in a way you did not approve? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one. Thank you for listening. Be careful who you trust with your signature.